for joining me on Alyssa Jean's Star Trek Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and this is my review for Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 2, Episode 4. Mugato Iko Badatu Mugato Gumato. And this video, of course, will be filled with spoilers, so if you have not yet seen the episode, then you need to turn back now, go watch the episode, and then return to this video after you have watched it. Alrighty now, so let me jump right into it. I'm just going to get straight to the point. This is easily the weakest episode of the season to this point. It did do something that I asked the show to do last week, something I was calling for. Last week when they had Mariner and Tendi together, I was like, great, now it's time to have Rutherford and Boimler together. And they did that. However, I didn't mean to just throw them together with a shitty storyline. I mean to give them a good storyline. And this was definitely not a good storyline. I like the effort to mix up the characters, but this one fell flat on its face. There were aspects of this episode that I did enjoy. Of course, the callbacks, the references, the Easter eggs, those are always fun in Lower Decks. And then we also got a pretty interesting Tendi storyline. I'm actually liking what they're doing with Tendi this season. But overall, this episode really falls short of any other episode this season. In fact, it reminds me a lot of a season 1 episode, one of the early season 1s that I did not love. So let me get into the details, and I will start with that Boimler and Rutherford storyline with Mariner. So when I did recently my Deep Space Nine least favorite episode list, I talked about in that video how a lot of the Deep Space Nine episodes that I don't like is because they are trying to recycle old, overused, unfunny sitcom tropes and put them into Star Trek. And that is exactly what they do here in this episode of Lower Decks. They're here using the old comic misunderstanding trope. The writers of Three's Company couldn't be prouder of this episode, as it is that level of humor. It's a trope that is not all that funny or inventive to begin with, and it has been used again and again and again and again. This whole thing where Boimler and Rutherford think the Mariner is a Black Ops agent, and all they have to do is ask her, and they don't do that. And they give you this Mr. X with Mariner of seemingly killing Shax, stabbing him with the knife. And of course, you know that that's not really what's happening. I mean, it is so dumb. I am so disappointed in Lower Decks for stooping to this level. I thought that they were better than that, but I guess it can't all be, not all episodes can be winners, I suppose. But it seems really beneath them to stoop to this really trite old sitcom trope that's not even that funny to begin with. So the bright side, though, of this storyline is that I do like the character development and the realization that, hey, you know what? Mariner does her thing well. Rutherford and Boimler, we do our thing well. We're better at diplomacy. We're better at using our brain. Mariner's more the brawn. I like that resolution. I did not like the means in which they arrived to that resolution. I think next time they want to do something like that, let's skip the old sitcom trope, okay? So let's get to that resolution without the stupid comic misunderstanding, ridiculous plot. So as far as the callbacks, there were some fun callbacks in this storyline. In the beginning, the cold opening, we get, I forget what it's called, but it's that thing that Kyle Riker and William Riker played against each other in the Icarus Factor in Season 2 of The Next Generation. You know, Kyle Riker, you know, William Riker's father, came aboard the Enterprise, and they got out all of their grievances with each other by doing that thing where they wear those silly gladiator uniforms. It reminds me of American Gladiator or something. I think it's probably what it was based on, because that episode came out in the late 80s. But yeah, that's a fun callback. Of course, the last outpost, Ferengi, even though it is a little weird when they throw in episode titles of The Next Generation or TOS in universe, which I think they've done before. This isn't the first time they do it, but it's weird when Mariner says the last outpost style Ferengi, but I thought that was kind of funny. The resolution where Boimler and Rutherford came up with that the compromise, that way to make them the Ferengi make more money with this eco-friendly Mugato park. It was a little bit silly, but it worked for the episode. And of course, the Mugato, famous from the original series episode, A Private Little War. I never understood the big deal about the Mugato. People always talk about the Mugato. But it was fun. It was fun to have some Mugato in this episode. So some fun callbacks. And another positive is the Tendi storyline. I'm impressed with what they're doing with Tendi this season, because last season, I really just didn't like anything they were doing with Tendi. And I said at the end of the first season that I would like to see them do better with Tendi and Rutherford. I think they still have some catching up to do with Rutherford, but I love what they're doing with Tendi. Last week they really focused on her not wanting to be stereotyped. This week, focus more on her needing to assert herself, but that didn't come out of nowhere. That was touched on a little bit last week as well, and it goes back to the first season. And I loved how she was going around just scanning people, and those one dudes were surfing in the holodeck, and she comes in on the hang glider and scans them. It was pretty obvious who the mystery patient was, so that was a little silly, but I did enjoy that plot nevertheless, and I like how she tricked the doctor into taking the scan by legit breaking her arm, not just faking an arm injury. She legit broke her arm and went beep. That was pretty funny. And I'm starting to enjoy the dynamic between Tendi and the cat doctor. I'm sorry, I can't think of her name off the top of my head. I know what it is. Somebody will write it in the comments and I'll say, yes, I already looked it up. I know, thank you. But I know what it is. It's just on the tip of my tongue. The cat doctor. I'm starting to enjoy that dynamic there, and I like the character development. That Tendi legitimately is starting to assert herself, and I hope that this continues forward. I wish that they had maybe focused a little bit more on this plot. It was kind of a, they didn't spend a lot of time on it. There was this other subplot with Captain Freeman and the junk ship, which was honestly a throwaway plot that I could have done without. I think they could have taken that time and devoted it more to Tendi's storyline. Honestly, I don't know why we needed to see this Captain Freeman plot. And then I was confused at the end when she was talking to the Admiral, which I believe is her husband, right? If I remember from last season, that's her husband is the Admiral. And she was talking to him at the end, and she was like, oh, so it's weird we discover these Ferengi that are running an eco-friendly Mugato park. How strange. And so, they didn't send her a report on what Boimler and Rutherford came up with? Why would they lie about that? So they're just pretending that it was always that way? But then Boimler and Rutherford don't get the credit they deserve. That was weird to me. But anyways, yeah, that was kind of a throwaway plot. And, this is going to end up probably being my shortest review yet, because I don't really have anything else to say about this episode. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw in my rating for this episode. So I always give a rating out of 10, with 1 being the lowest possible score, 10 being the highest possible score. And on that scale, my rating for Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 4 is a 6. A 6 is really not a terrible score. I mean, it's above average. It seems like a low number because I typically don't give below a 7 for Lower Decks. But this is definitely one of the weaker episodes, not only of the season, but of the series. However, I do feel optimistic still about the direction the season is heading. I do appreciate the effort to mix up the characters. They just need to execute a little better, and I am confident enough in the writers and Mike McMahon to know that they will execute better. In fact, I predict that this will be, in my opinion, the weakest episode of the entire season once we get through all 10 episodes. I don't expect a repeat of this level of mediocrity end of this season. I could be proven wrong, but I think this will probably end up being the weakest. I think this is going to the low end of Lower Decks episode. It's still not terrible. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a horrible episode. There are some positive things in it that I did enjoy, but it's hard for me to get over the Three's Company thing, the comic misunderstanding. It's just like, come on. All right. That's all I gotta say for this episode. Join me next week as I review episode 5 of Lower Decks. And if you're into Star Trek, please check out my 10 least favorite and 20 favorite episode videos for TOS, TNG, and DS9. And if you're into the MCU, I'm doing weekly discussions with my brother Mark from Enchantment of Eternity and a rotating third guest on What If. I've also reviewed all the Phase 4 projects. And tomorrow, September 3rd, I'm going to see Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and then I will come home and immediately do a live report on my initial thoughts on that film. I also do trans-related videos, talk about my transition story, so if you're interested in that, please check all those out too. Please subscribe, and I hope to see you real soon. Bye-bye.